The Magic Shop by H. G. Wells. Read by Lisa M. Kendrick. I had seen the magic shop from afar several times. I had passed it once or twice, a shop window of alluring little objects, magic balls, magic hens, wonderful cones, ventriloquist dolls, the material of the basket trick, packs of cards that looked all right, and all that sort of thing, but never had I thought of going in until one day, almost without warning, Jip hauled me by my finger right up to the window. He so conducted himself that there was nothing for it but to take him in. I had not thought the place was there, to tell the truth. A modest sized frontage in Regent Street, between the picture shop and the place where the chicks run about just out of patent incubators. But there it was, sure enough. I had fancied it was down near the circus or round the corner in Oxford Street, or even in Holborn. Always over the way and a little inaccessible it had been, and something of a mirage in its position. But here it was now, quite indisputably, and the fat end of Jip's pointing finger made a noise upon the glass. If I was rich, said Jip, dabbing a finger at the disappearing egg, I'd buy myself that, which was the crying baby, very human, and that, which was a mystery and called, so a neat card asserted, buy one and astonish your friends. Anything, said Jip, will disappear under one of those cones. I have read about it in a book. And there, Dada, is the vanishing halfpenny, only they've put it this way up so we can't see how it's done. Jip, dear boy, inherits his mother's breeding, and he did not propose to enter the shop or worry in any way, only you know, quite unconsciously, he lugged my finger downward, and he made his interest clear. That, he said, pointing at the magic bottle. If you had that, I said, at which promising inquiry he looked up with a sudden radiance. I could show it to Jessie, he said, thoughtful as ever of others. It's less than 100 days to your birthday, Gibbles, I said, and laid my hand on the door handle. Jip made no answer, but his grip tightened on my finger, and so we came into the shop. It was no common shop, this. It was a magic shop, and all the prancing precedence Jip would have taken in the matter of mere toys was wanting. He left the burthen of the conversation to me. It was a little, narrow shop, not very well lit, and the doorbell pinged again with a plaintive note as we closed it behind us. For a moment or so we were alone and could glance about us. There was a tiger in papier-mâché on the glass case that covered the low counter, a grave, kind-eyed tiger that waggled his head in a methodical manner. There were several crystal spheres, a china hand holding magic cards, a stock of magic fish bowls in various sizes, and an immodest magic hat that shamelessly displayed its springs. On the floor were magic mirrors, one to draw you out long and thin, one to swell your head and banish your legs, and one to make you short and fat like a draft. And while we were laughing at these, the shopman, I suppose, came in. At any rate, there he was behind the counter, a curious, sallow, dark man, with one ear larger than the other and a chin like the toe cap of a boot. What can we have the pleasure, he said, spreading his long magic fingers on the glass case, and so with a start we were aware of him. I want, I said, to buy my little boy a few simple tricks. Legerdemain, he asked, mechanical, domestic? Anything amusing? Said I. Said the shopman, and scratched his head for a moment as if thinking. Then, quite distinctly, he drew from his head a glass ball. Something in this way, he said, and held it out. The action was unexpected. I had seen the trick done at entertainments endless times before. It's part of the common stock of conjurers, but I had not expected it here. That's good, I said, with a laugh. Isn't it? Said the shopman. Jip stretched out his disengaged hand to take this object and found merely a blank palm. It's in your pocket, said the shopman, and there it was. How much will that be? I asked. We make no charge for glass balls, said the shopman politely. We get them, he picked one out of his elbow as he spoke, free. He produced another from the back of his neck and laid it beside its predecessor on the counter. Jip regarded his glass ball sagely, then directed a look of inquiry at the two on the counter. and finally brought his round eyed scrutiny to the shopman, who smiled. You may have those too, said the shopman, and if you don't mind, one from my mouth. So? Jip counseled me mutely for a moment, and then, in a profound silence, put away the four balls, resuming my reassuring finger, and nerved himself for the next event. We get all our smaller tricks in that way, the shopman remarked. I laughed in the manner of one who subscribes to a jest. Instead of going to the wholesale shop, I say. Of course, it's cheaper. In a way, the shopman said, though we pay in the end, but not so heavily as people suppose. Our larger tricks and our daily provisions and all the other things we want, we get out of that hat. And you know, sir, if you'll excuse my saying, there isn't a wholesale shop not for genuine magic. I don't know if you noticed our inscription, the genuine magic shop. He drew a business card from his cheek and handed it to me. Genuine, he said, with his finger on the word, and added, There is absolutely no deception, sir. He seemed to be carrying out the joke pretty thoroughly, I thought. He turned to Jip with a smile of remarkable affability. You know, are the right sort of boy. I was surprised at his knowing that. In the interests of discipline, we keep it rather a secret even at home, but Jip received it in unflinching silence, keeping a steadfast eye on him. It's only the right sort of boy gets through that doorway. And as if by way of illustration, there came a rattling at the door, and a squeaking little voice could be faintly heard. I want to go in there, Dada, I want to go in there, no! And then the accents of a downtrodden parent urging consolations. It's locked, Edward, he said. But it isn't, said I. It is, sir, said the shopman. Always for that sort of child. And as he spoke, we had a glimpse of the other youngster, a little white face, pallid from sweet eating and over-sapid food, and distorted by evil passions, a ruthless little egoist pawing at the enchanted pain. It's no good, sir, said the shopman as I moved with my natural helpfulness doorward, and presently the spoilt child was carried off howling. How do you manage that? I said, breathing a little more freely. Magic, said the shopman, with a careless wave of the hand, and behold, sparks of colored fire flew out of his fingers and vanished into the shadows of the shop. You were saying, he said, addressing himself to Jip, before you came in, that you would like one of our buy one and astonish your friends boxes. Jip, after a gallant effort, said, Yes, it's in your pocket. And leaning over the counter, he really had an extraordinarily long body. This amazing person produced the article in the customary conjurer's manner. Paper, he said, and took a sheet out of the empty hat with its springs. String. And behold, his mouth was a string box, from which he drew an unending thread, which when he had tied this parcel he bit off, and it seemed to me swallowed the ball of string. And then he lit a candle at the nose of one of the ventriloquist dummies, stuck one of his fingers, which had become sealing wax red, into the flame, and so sealed the parcel. Then there was the disappearing egg, he remarked, and produced one from within my coat breast, and packed it, and also the crying baby, very human. I handed each parcel to Jip as it was ready, and he clasped them to his chest. He said very little, but his eyes were eloquent. The clutch of his arms was eloquent. He was the playground of unspeakable emotions. These, you know, were real magics. Then, with a start, I discovered something moving about in my hat, something soft and jumpy. I whipped it off, and a ruffled pigeon, no doubt a Confederate, dropped out and ran on the counter and went, I fancy, into a cardboard box behind the papier-mâché tiger. Tut-tut, said the shopman, dexterously relieving me of my headdress. Careless bird, and as I live, nesting. He shook my hat and shook out into his extended hand 2 or 3 eggs, a large marble, a watch, and half a dozen of the inevitable glass balls. Then crumpled, crinkled paper, more and more and more, taking all the time of the way in which people neglect to brush their hats inside as well as out. Politely, of course, but with a certain personal application. All sorts of things accumulate, sir. Not to you, of course, in particular, nearly every customer. Astonishing what they carry with them. The crumpled paper rose and billowed on the counter more and more and more until he was nearly hidden from us, until he was altogether hidden, and still his voice went on and on. We none of us know that the fair semblance of a human being may conceal, sir, all we all then know better than brushed exteriors, whited sepulchres. His voice stopped. Exactly like when you hit a neighbor's gramophone with a well aimed brick. The same instant, silence and the rustle of paper stopped, and everything was still. Have you done with my hat? I said, after an interval. There was no answer. I stared at Jip, and Jip stared at me, and there were our distortions in the magic mirrors, looking very rum and grave and quiet. I think we'll go now, I said. Will you tell me how much all this comes to? I said, on a rather louder note, I want the bill and my hat, please. It might have been a sniff from behind the paper pile. Let's look behind the counter, Jip, I said. He's making fun of us. I led Jip round the head wagging tiger, and what do you think there was behind the counter? No one at all. Only my hat on the floor, and a common conjurer's lop eared white rabbit lost in meditation and looking as stupid and crumbled as only conjurers' rabbits can do. I resumed my hat, and the rabbit lolloped a lollop or so out of my way.